on personality finance, or how I went down a rabbit hole of pop psychology. I wanted to answer the question, how does our personality impact our financial behavior? And I figured I'd seen lots of quizzes and stuff online. And then I started researching it, and I spent several days falling down a rabbit hole of pop psychology and personality quizzes and other things. So first, quickly, I want to kind of define pop psychology. Pop psychology is any kind of altering psychological concepts into more relatable, simplified ideas. Great, definitely a good thing. Or it can also be generalizing, oversimplifying, or misinterpreting psychological concepts or promoting research that's dubious, unable to be replicated, or exaggerated. So, and it's basically an idea whose popular enthusiasm has outstripped its scientific support. Just a few you might know here, you can master anything with 10,000 hours of practice. Not necessarily true. We only use 10% of our brain. Again, not actually true. So what does pop psychology have to say about finance? A lot. I found three different versions of money archetypes, something I was familiar with because we use archetypes in marketing a lot. And I quickly realized that a lot of this stuff was just marketing. I found dozens of different lists, none of which matched, none of which had any, most of which had very little, if any, research backgrounds or like sources. So I spent a couple days going down that rabbit hole trying to figure it out. I originally was going to try to compare these and like summarize them, but that wasn't going to happen. And then I kind of went with kind of the other popular pop psychology personality tests. We got the Myers-Briggs and Enneagram. So here I want to stop for a minute. Does anybody have any experience? I know I have experience with Myers-Briggs. Does anybody have any experience with either of these personality tests or any kind of money personality tests?
Yes.
Quizzes? Oh, shoot. My cat just unplugged my monitor. Okay.
Myers-Briggs from like work.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And Enneagram.
So,
and somebody said money habitudes.
yeah, money habitudes too. So I'm going to just go quickly into cover these because they are pretty much ones that people know about. I know I've taken Myers-Briggs about 4 or 5 times. Classifies you into 4 different categories. There's 16 different combinations. It was developed by Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter, Isabella Meyer-Briggs, in the late 1940s, inspired by Carl Jung's theory of psychological types. You'll note they didn't have the words doctor or psychologist in front of their names. They were just interested in the topic. As for Enneagrams, it is, quote, a modern synthesis of a number of ancient wisdom traditions, generally popularized by South American social worker Oscar Ichazo in the 60s and 70s. It divides people into 9 main types. So, what's the problem? None of these are backed by any scientific research. Now, we've all done Myers-Briggs and we all found them useful. So why do they seem true? Why do they continue to be popular? Part of the answer can be explained by something called the Forer effect. If you give someone a vague enough statement, they'll see themselves in it, especially if it comes from a trusted source and they want to believe it. For example, I found an article about Enneagrams and the author wrote, I knew I was a Ravenclaw before I even took the test, and I answered the questions accordingly. When I saw the results and read the description, it's no surprise that I felt it was like me. So basically, the problem with Myers-Briggs and Enneagrams and all those, especially Myers-Briggs, it's an artificial static dichotomy and I can tell you from taking Myers-Briggs several times, I have never gotten the same answer twice. And that is because it assumes a static dichotomy of one or the other when everyone's usually on a scale. It's not predictive of performance, which is neither here nor there for money necessarily. It also has the potential for self-fulfilling prophecies, I think any personality test has this, or any kind of personality group. In high school, I had a friend whose mom was really into astrology. She pegged me as a Capricorn right off the bat. And every time I went to that house, I was the Capricorn. And it was really, really annoying that I was always in that box as like, oh, of course you did that. You're a Capricorn. But we still take these. Why do we still take these? Because we're not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. That is my nephew Archie. He loves taking baths and spraying people with water. So these aren't really scientific, but you know what? Any kind of quiz can increase your self-awareness, and especially with Myers-Briggs, it's designed for communication. Once you kind of know that about somebody, it can help you with communication. That's what it's designed for, and that's what it does. Now you're saying, wait, weren't we talking about money and personality? What does science have to say about personality if all these kind of personality quizzes and things are bunk? Well, the most kind of pretty much accepted scientific research on personality across several decades, several different cultures, etc., is this concept of the big five personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Now, everybody has these traits in different, and the thing about this, it does have some correlation with Myers-Briggs, but the way that this is used is on a scale. So you're scored from low 1 to high, I think 5 or 10 on each of these. And so you could be anywhere in the middle. Openness refers to the extent to which a person is open to new experiences, creativity, and complexity. Conscientiousness indicates how organized, punctual, and reliable a person is. Extroversion measures a person's degree of sociability and assertiveness. Agreeableness reflects a person's kindness, helpfulness, and compassion. Neuroticism is neuroticism. So again, you're saying, yes, but financial behavior, why aren't we talking about that? Fun fact, I found out during researching this that the claim that goldfish have an attention span of only 8 seconds is a myth, not supported by scientific evidence. So it's a pop psychology belief. Apparently, goldfish have been shown to have good memories and can learn and remember things for extended periods of time. So, in terms of agreeableness, what the research says is that people who tend to score high in agreeableness often have lower savings and higher debt and default rates. The researcher who did the study says that this relationship appears to be driven by the fact that agreeable people simply care less about money and therefore at higher risk of money management. The belief is that they're taught to care about people and money isn't about people, so I shouldn't care about money. In terms of conscientiousness, it's generally believed to have a positive influence on financial behavior. Extroversion, extroverts tend to invest more. They have a higher tolerance for financial risk. They're more likely to adopt others' advice, and they're more likely to make more rational psychological decisions or financial decisions. And then another research that I came across recently was about optimism. And optimism isn't one of these 5 traits, but it's correlated closely with conscientiousness, extroversion, and openness. And so they found that optimism has a slightly stronger influence on savings behavior than financial literacy and risk tolerance. So optimism can help you save. And the really interesting thing about this study is that it found that the effect was even higher among those with low incomes. And as for neuroticism, I don't really find any research, but you can kind of guess. But I did find a really interesting research study that said that people whose savings goals align with their dominant personality traits are more likely to save money. So knowing that, can anyone think of kind of an example of goal setting for someone based on one of these habits, traits?
I save money.
Immigrants.
Oh, go ahead.
I say people that are immigrants that are coming over, people whose savings, they're brought up like my parents. My parents, right? They came over from Cuba. You know, they were well over there, but when it came over here, their savings, everything was about savings and aligning and to save money. That was their thing.
I think it's interesting because the study actually cited, I had said earlier that agreeableness tends to correlate with some lower savings. And so they were trying to figure out a way, how can we get agreeable people to save more? And the researcher said, could we simply highlight how saving money will help them protect their loved ones? And something that makes money a lot more means to an end that they care about. So another example is a person high in conscientiousness might be more likely to plan for the future and thus more motivated to save for retirement. Anybody else have any thoughts, ideas on that?
I have kind of a mixed one, like somebody that's a goal setter might save more, but they also might spend more if their goal is to like drive a sports car or, I mean, I think it could go either way. And you talked about people that were like on time and,
And so this is specifically in terms of framing savings goals. So if like someone's extroverted, say, do you want to save for that big trip with all your friends or something like that?
Or pick up the tab at the bar for everyone because you're the good time person.
Yeah. So it's something interesting to keep in mind. So what have we learned? There are no definitive money types, but any personal insights can help with financial insights. Goldfish have good memories, and personality quizzes are fun. So I know I said some bad things about MBTI and other things, but you know what? I came down to the conclusion that if it works for you and it gives your clients insight, go with whatever they're comfortable with. So here are some of the basic ones that I covered in here if you ever want to look them up. Anybody have questions or comments?
Any questions?